Do you keep having those now what moments in your life? You know the ones. When someone walks up to you and asks, did you hear what's happening now? And you think, now what? Does it feel like these moments are coming at you so fast that you rarely have time to stop and ask yourself, what now? Join a fresh new conversation. Let's look together at what is happening in a completely new way, solving the latest challenges in your life, fear-free, using powerful discernment and your own innate wisdom. Come discover how to trust in yourself again, gain your confidence and joy back. What now? Now what? Radio. Welcome to the show today. This is Zen Cryer DeBrook, and this is episode 1 of What Now? Now What? I am super excited to have you here today, and I will be taking live callers a little bit later. Today, for the first episode, I just really wanted to kind of outline what the show is about and why I've decided to do this. Little of my background is I have been in personal development and spiritual development for the past 23 years with my own Smart Soul Academy, starting in 2006. Over the course of the radio, you're going to find out a lot more about me. But for now, I just want you to know that I do have a book. It's a best-selling book called Your Inner GPS. And I've taught and trained over 40,000 people on what I call their internal guidance system. So over the time that I've been studying and decoding this internal guidance system, I've thought and found that there are a lot of things that are, I can't say universal truths, because I don't know if there is such a thing. I know a lot of people do believe there's such a thing as a universal truth, but I've found that many truths in our lives evolve as we do as humans. That what was true for us back in 200 AD or 300 BC is not what's true for us today. And I believe that's a healthy, strong, beautiful thing. I think a lot of people feel the need to hang on to some of the older truths and try to fit into them, and they're not comfortable anymore. And so on this first episode, which I've called Falling Awake, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about what I found to be true, see if it resonates with you. And if it doesn't, please, it's all good. I want you to believe and love what you feel the world is about yourself. And there's no need to, in any way, shape, or form, go ahead and try to fit into a mold that I have, right? I actually believe that it's really important for you to be significant, for each and every one of us to be significant, and that our belonging is in our ways in which we are contributing to conversations using our own experiences, our own intelligence, and our own deep innate discernment. So that's really what this show is about. It's about exploring what's happening here on planet Earth with all of us humans. Things seem to be going pretty rough right now. And I'm hoping that we'll bring a little light to this. I have a unique perspective that's shared by many, but that I've come to through my own study, my own discernment and wisdom, and using my internal guidance system. So for today's show, we're going to start with that. What is your internal guidance system? I'll give you ways to find out more about it, and you can research it on your own through videos I have posted and podcasts and audio and that kind of thing. And for now, I just want to give you the basics so that you have some context to what we're going to be discussing and how you can be able to understand for yourself what resonates with you from what I'll be saying in the coming episodes and today, and what doesn't. I want you to take what feels great for you and is opening, and go ahead and release anything that opens you that you don't believe in. So here's how the IGS works, Internal Guidance System, IGS for short. Back in 1993, I was given an audio cassette tape. It was a little known person at the time called Esther Hicks. And she was channeling a soul family called Abraham. At that time, my life was a mess and I was sabotaging it royally. We'll have an opportunity to go into another episode where I'm going to go into my backstory. But the biggest thing is on this cassette tape, they talked about the law of attraction, which I thought was super cool. But they also talked about having an internal guidance system, that every single human being is born with a unique system inside their body that's attached to their personal life's blueprint. And that when you're following your personal life's blueprint, you feel this expanded or peaceful feeling in the center of your body. This feeling that's in the center of your body can be really big and ecstatic, like having the biggest, most brilliant idea that you've ever had that you just have to execute on, being in love, being in support of an organization or an institution. A lot of people feel this about their church. They feel this about nonprofits they work with. That's kind of the opening, and it's happening to us all throughout our day. And then when we're off of our life's blueprint, there's a tightness in our body. It shows up like a lump in the throat, a tightness in the chest, or a sick feeling in the solar plexus. To be fair, what they actually said was, when you're on your paths and purpose, you feel an opening, easing feeling. And when you're off your path and purpose, you feel a tight, constricted feeling. And that's how you know whether you're in alignment with what you're here to do or not. That's all they gave me. Everything else that I just told you about, the lump in the throat, the tightness in the chest, the opening, everything else I had to discern for myself. And I've been on that path since 1993. The reason why your internal guidance system is so important is because you can literally feel for yourself, okay? You can feel for yourself when you're in alignment and it feels great and you're collaborative, you feel confident, you feel like there's discernment happening where you know what's right for you and you know what's not right for you. Decisions are easy. Being intimate and loving with the people in your life is easy. You don't beat yourself up. You don't have to feel shame. There's all these things that when you learn how to follow your internal guidance system that come into play. I will be discussing this and give you opportunity to find out more about that. And I encourage you to do that. You can look me up at Zen Cryer to Brooke on youtube.com. And there you'll find a whole bunch of information about that. I just wanted to bring it up because this is the foundation of where I've found the truths that are right for me. And I've found that when I share these truths, what happens is that people find themselves opening, expanding, that things feel true for them. And that's why I'm doing this show. The purpose of this show is to give you a fresh new way to think about the problems in your personal life and the world at large. The what now part of this is because it feels to me that every time I turn around, I'm being asked a question of like, do you know what's going on now? Or have you heard about this? And I'm like, in my mind, I think, what now? What now? I don't want any more. I'm done. Okay. Then after a little period of time, I use my internal guidance system and I think through it till I find an opening, and it's my now what. The now what is what I am to be doing now, how I'm to be using this information in my life to make the world a better place, to contribute who I am to the conversation. And I can tell you right now that I often will come at it in a place where I feel really actually good about where we're going. And that may sound crazy. I'm not coming at this as some airy-fairy, super positive Pollyanna person, always happy and cheery and turning something that's a negative into a positive. Because a lot of times in using your IGS, you'll get an opening when you hear grave news or something treacherous or something fraudulent out in the world. You'll open that it's true. The key here is that it's never fear that opens you. Fear is the thing that's destroying us and the world around us. That's the conversation that I wanted to be in on this show. What I do when I go from the what now to the now what, when I'm finished with my now what thinking and figuring out where my openings are and what's true for me, I feel centered, I feel calm, and I feel positive in what I am to be sharing or not sharing, not contributing or contributing to the situations I'm hearing about. That's the conversation that I want to bring and I want to share with you, not as a you can do this too or a you should do this too, but as a how to. How do you go from the what now to the now what? I'll be taking callers in this show. Towards the end of each episode, I'll be going ahead and giving you guys the number and you can call in and I can work with you directly on the what now what. The only thing I request is that you're sane and you bring a great conversation to the table, not just complaints. It can start as a complaint, but if you don't move off it soon, where we're actually working with something that can help you to like get really centered on how to think about this for yourself, then I'm going to go ahead and move on. But I think y'all can do that. If you're attracted to this topic at all, I'm expecting you're ready for a great conversation and a new way to think about things. So the other thing that I want you to know is that I come from a very specific ideology that I've created for myself. My background is Christian, and I did go to church as a kid, and I do love the Bible, and that's still my grounding. But I've also done a lot of other research in the world, some of it with near-death experiences. I'm fascinated by near-death experiences because the science itself is actually gotten to a place where they've interviewed so many people, and these interviews have been happening for over 200 years, being written down and recorded. And they're finding that there is globally similarities that are 100% unable to happen throughout the ages, with the lack of communication, the lack of transmissions that were happening. It doesn't matter what language, what culture, throughout all of the NDEs, which is a near-death experience. So throughout all of the ages, there are certain things that they found to be universal. And you can research that and read about it, or even just go and look it up on YouTube. There's a lot of wonderful near-death experiences that people are sharing on YouTube. But there seems to be an overarching idea that's coming through as people come back and report different experiences. There's themes. And one of the themes is that this is not our home, that this is a school. Planet Earth is a school, and we come down here to better ourselves. Think of having your soul be coal, right? Big hunk of coal. You come down here and you put yourself under pressure, and under pressure, it slowly and surely becomes a diamond. And there's certain principles that'll help you to be able to become a diamond more quickly and not have to go through so much pressure. And that's part of what the show is going to be about. Also, when they go to the other side, most of them, there occasionally are stories that are darker, but they always end up coming back to a light, which I find fascinating and interesting. Also, when we get to the other side, we are filled with love. We feel like we're home, and we do not want to come back to these bodies. In fact, there's stories, lots of stories, where when a person comes back to their body, it feels awful. In the story Embraced by the Light, the woman who, Edie is her name, her last name is Edie, when she came back into her body after having been gone for 40 minutes, she said it felt like putting on a slimy, wet pair of overalls. Now, I don't know about you, but there's nothing I like less than getting clean, putting on a pair of slimy, muddy, yucky clothes to go back out. It's awful. So if that's what this body is, then who are you? Well, according to many people out there, and it's how I feel about you as well, you're an amazing creature. You're an incredible being. First of all, coming down here is hard. It's very hard. And you elected and decided to be here. As bad as it may get, you still wanted to come down and play the game, to be in this school, to look at yourself differently. Another thing that they say, that people who come back from NDE say, is that we create our life. We decide. There seems to be a council. And like I said, this is global. I know, I can't remember the name, but I know one individual interviewed 1,200 people, and the similarities are amazing. So please, if this excites you, go check it out. The second thing is we create our lives. Like, we look at who we are. Now, how we decide to do that is by having our own life review. Now, according to what they say, is that we don't get judged by anyone outside of ourselves. There is no someone who sits there and says, and you did this and you did that. The process is that there's a life review, and you see your life from beginning to end, and you feel your life. Now, this is one of the parts that scared the heck out of me personally. I'm like, oh no, I'm going to feel that when I picked on that kid in 6th grade, and I'm going to feel the arguments I had with my mom as a teenager, and on it goes, right? But it's true. And it's hard, but it's us looking at ourselves. You are the one who judges yourself. You are the one that looks and sees if you made the mark that you wanted to make. And you can feel the way the other people around you felt, both in a positive, pleasurable, amazing, loving way, and in a harsh, negative way. What they felt. And then you also get the ripple effect of what happened after that and after that, as that ripple went out of you and into the world. How that person then kicked the dog or got mad at the Starbucks person, or, came into work dejected and lost their job because of their attitude, or whatever it is that happened. You're going to get to experience that. Then we gather all of that information together ourselves with, from what I understand, is a team, a little team of people that are dedicated to you and your life and your purpose. And you come up with what you want to do instead. What would you want to have it be instead? How are you going to do it better next time? Then you enroll what is called your soul family. Then your soul family is a group of beings that you've been going through lifetimes with, polishing this diamond of yours. And they're here to cooperate, and you're here to cooperate with them. So as you're deciding what your life is, you guys jump into collaboration and you figure out how it's all going to be woven together before you even get here. Then it goes in front of a council, because there's a lot of people that are A-type souls that are out there and they want to get it all done in one lifetime. Or there's other ones who are really not wanting to get a lot done in this lifetime. And so this council helps you to not overdo it. Literally, they talk you out of things where they think it's going to be too much, that you might become unbearable, that you might turn to addiction, that you might turn to suicide, that there will be ways in which what you've taken on is too hard. And then when everything feels right and aligned for you and your soul family, you start incarnating down here and having this experience. Part of the reason why this is so exciting to me is because in working with 40,000 people and using the internal guidance system, the premise that I have is that the world around us is a mirror. If you have any experience with the law of attraction, it is that like energy attracts like energy. Okay. So I do believe that the law of attraction is true, but I don't think it's about sitting in a recliner so you can pretend you're driving a Ferrari and it's going to show up in your driveway. I believe that it's a mirror of our soul that we're polishing into a diamond. The world around us is the good and the bad and the beautiful and the extraordinary, is the reflection of us. So an example of this is if you've ever been walking down a busy street in a big city and you're just bebopping along, walking to wherever you're going to go. And there's people passing you and they're almost like ghosts. You don't even notice who they are. You don't even see them. You don't see their energy. You don't notice them. And then all of a sudden, one person will come walking up and it's like they go from a blur into real clarity, and you look at each other in the eye and you nod your head and there's a connection. You may even remember that person for 15 minutes or an hour. Like there's a thing, and it doesn't have to be a sexual thing or anything like that. It's just there's a knowing, a nod to a presence of somebody that's familiar, that you're aware of. That's in the soul family. It could be the larger soul family, not the little one, but you guys are all aligned in the same thing in that particular group. And there's one of them. So in the reflection that we have of the world around us as our soul, when you get triggered, when you have good experiences, when you have things happen to you, it's all based on who you are and what you need to handle, what you need to move through, what you need to focus on in order to polish that soul. So for instance, if you have a trigger, that means that that person is showing you something that you are doing to yourself or others. Yourself or others, that trigger. And so part of what we're going to be discussing is the how do you get rid of that trigger? And so that is the pressure that makes the diamond. The pressure is the triggers. The pressure is the challenges. And it's how you transform who you are to handle it differently, to handle it in a way that's opening, that you're proud of, where you show wisdom and discernment, and you move into the world in a different way. That ripple changes. That ripple that you would witness when you pass and you do your own life review changes. So this reflection's happening all around us. I had a very interesting experience. I was living in Oakland, California, in this beautiful place. It's called Lake Merritt. It's a great community, lovely. Used to walk around the lake all the time and go into the little town and have breakfast or a clothing shop or meet for coffee. I'd lived there for 2 years, and I had a friend who's an ex-heroin addict come and visit. And she and I were walking around town, and she's like, oh, there's a deal going on over there. Oh, that's a drug house right there. And she was pointing out all of the illicit heroin and drug activity in my neighborhood. I'd never, ever seen it. She was pointing out people that I'd never seen. It was wild what I had never seen. Then for about a few days after she left, maybe a week, I was still seeing it. But over the course of another week or two, I stopped being able to see it. Like I would stop and be like, for safety or whatever, look around, and I couldn't see it. It's not because I'm pulling the wool over my own eyes. It's not in my mirror. It's not in my vibrational frequency. It's not the experience that I'm here to have. It's not the pressure that I'm supposed to be under. I have other pressures. What people think about me, whether someone calls me back on time or not. That's actually an old one. What I'm here to produce in the world. Am I doing enough? I have other pressures that I'm working with doing gracefully. So the bigger picture here is being lost in the striving and the fear that's happening all around the world. We are all, most of us, I can't say all, but I'm finding very few people, are all striving for our security, our freedom, our safety, our feelings of hedonism, wanting to eat rich food. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with any of this, but the focus ends up not being on the polishing of the diamond that we came here to do. It's other things that we're filling ourselves up with in order to have us feel like we're happy, like our life is working for us, like we're worth something, we're worthy, we're valuable. That's taking up our time. And in that, we have fear. We have fear of lack. We have fear of losing our material things. We have emotional fear. We have not being enough, not being respected. We're almost on the edge of a World War III nuclear war, out of a big issue that Putin has for respecting his wishes to have a padded boundary around his country. He doesn't feel like he's being respected. People who aren't respected or have this fear of not being respected can do dangerous things. We can all do dangerous things when we're pushed into fear deep enough. Fear is always closing to your internal guidance system. We're going to wrap back around to that here in a bit, but your internal guidance system, you're born with this expansion and contraction. It resides between your throat and your upper solar plex area. And when it's contracted, it's in fear. Now, fear shows up in many different ways. So I like to call the breakdown of fear stress, worry, anxiety, overwhelm, irritation, frustration, guilt, procrastination, impatience. These are just to name a few. Impatience is about not having enough time. Procrastination is fear of not getting enough done. Guilt is whether you're being a good person or a bad person. Frustration is at a situation and your mind fears it'll never change. Irritation is at a person who your mind fears will never change. And it goes on and on and on like that. And so when we're in fear, we're not on our life's blueprint. I'm going to say that again. Whenever we're in fear, we're not on our life's blueprint. So that means that if you're looking at all the world around us and all the fear porn that's being produced and shoved at us, of be afraid of the food shortages, be afraid of nuclear war, be afraid for your children, be afraid for your health. Okay, be afraid of the vaccine, be afraid of COVID, be afraid of the authority figures above us, be afraid of the people that are militia members and trying to take over the democracy of the United States. Be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. You're not on your blueprint in the moments that you're generating that thinking, those thoughts. And you may be thinking, God, Zen, how could I not be in that? How could it possibly be that I could step out of fear and back into my blueprint? I'm trying. I mean, one of the biggest things that we have today, one of the biggest complaints that we have about people who are dissatisfied with their life is they feel they have no purpose and they don't matter. They can't get to their purpose through all the fear. Fear of leaving their job to go do what they love. Fear of not having enough for their kids. Fear of not being good enough, not being qualified enough. It goes on and on and on. Fear, fear, fear. So in using the internal guidance system and working with people, they become fear-free. So what happens is you take the fear and you pivot into this opening, and this opening becomes something new, and it feels like guidance. It feels like flow, and you're back on your divine blueprint. If you look around at all the people who are in fear in the world right now, there's not a lot of people on their divine blueprint. And that's what they're here to do. And so it's no wonder that we're getting all this chaos, this cacophony of dissent and disconnection all around us, that we're pointing fingers at each other. I can't trust you. You're going to ruin everything. You're going to make me unhappy. And the truth is that all resides within us. I love the Dalai Lama in his quote. He was quoted as saying, a person at a live event asked him, how do we get to world peace? And he stopped and he was quiet for a long time. And he said, finally, I don't know. But I know it's an inside job. And that's what this show is about. The now what is how do you find world peace inside of you? It doesn't look like floating down a pond, floating in the middle of a pond, sitting lotus style and going, oh, no. It looks like being in the fray, stopping in the moment, realizing that you feel tight inside, searching your thoughts, finding what you're thinking that's out of alignment with your blueprint, meaning what's out of alignment in this moment, to get back into alignment so that you're in the moment producing what you are there to produce. Because there is one thing that we need more than anything, is for each of us to be on our blueprint and producing what we're here to produce, contributing our gifts, contributing what's unique. No one group or person can fix this planet, can fix the human species and the sorrow and the pain and the torture and the suffering that's coming out of our minds. The fear that I'm talking about is not the fear of the tiger jumping out of the bush. The fear that I'm talking about is the mental and emotional fear that's torturing and causing anguish inside of our beings all the time. We get little breaks, but it's not long enough. So we're going to talk about that. How do we get back on our blueprint? And I'm going to literally give you the how-tos. I won't leave you hanging. I'll give you the steps. And they've been working for a lot of people, and now it's time for us to get it working with all of us. So we're going to be taking callers here in about 5 or 6 minutes. And I have to get the number out. I forgot to write it down. Give me a moment here. In the meantime, though, I would love it if you would go ahead and put this in your calendar, Tuesdays, if you would like to be a part of this conversation. Put it in your calendar, Tuesday at 12. We're live Pacific Standard Time, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And what would be fantastic is, even if you don't, if you can't make it live, let's say you're listening to this in a recording right now, then what I'd love for you to do is to still go ahead and send in your questions or your comments to support@smartsoul.com. Support@smartsoul.com. All right. That would be fantastic. I want to connect with you. I want to hear how this is working. I want to hear about your challenges. I want to open this up. I want this to be fresh. The thing that you're going to find is in doing the participating in the conversation and doing the things that I share with you to do. Go out and try this on and see if you feel better and see how the world around you reacts. You will find that the world starts getting brighter, that magic and synchronicity become more of the norm, that you feel like you're in the right place at the right time all the time. All right. So write down this number. We're going to start taking callers. And I've got one other piece that I want to share with you. That's very important, I think. And that number is 844-390-8255. That number again is 844-390-8255. I'll repeat that in just a bit. So when, I've talked about in talking today about this ripple effect, right? That happens when you're doing your life review and you get to see the effect that you've had on all levels in all ways inside your life and how far it went rippling out of you. And I have this vision that I had, this just literally a vision. And so here it is. And I want to talk to you about it and see what you think, as well as anything else I've been saying today. Imagine a pond, a good sized pond. One of them's maybe in someone's backyard. It's not huge, but it's a good sized pond. And you know how the pond has all these reeds, these little thin grassy reeds around the outside. And in the grassy reed area is where all the babies are. The little pollywogs, the little fish, right? The little bugs, the eggs of things that have not hatched yet. And those need to be protected. And I think it's a beautiful thing that the ponds in the world have these reeds to protect those little things so they can grow and become established. And then if something big happens, something shocking, let's say 8-year-old comes walking up and takes a big giant rock and hucks it into the middle of the pond and creates a big splash, and the waves start going out, big waves. And as they go out towards the edge, they hit the reeds. And if you notice, if you've ever paid attention, behind the reed is like a little V. It stops the wave. And the reed itself behind it has this little V that's peaceful water. And the more reeds, the less that those big giant ripples and waves can get into the area where there's the little ones that need to be protected. I like to think of someone who's using their internal guidance system and going from that tight, closed down sensation and learning how to pivot their thinking to expand their body and the inside and come to this. It feels like discernment. It feels like wisdom. It's an opening. We call it opening. Those who do that are a reed. They stop the ripple from moving through them to others. So what can this look like? One of my favorite examples is the light immediately turns green and you don't jump off the line and the person behind you honks and you're kind of jolted. You're like, oh. It depends on who your ego is and how you take that. You could go anywhere from feeling shame that you did something wrong because you didn't move fast enough to being in a real big F you moment where you're talking to the person and well, heck with you. And you're, spend the next 10 minutes being all upset and arguing and anything in between. But those reactions, those triggers from that one moment, they're in you. They're rippling out. Doesn't mean that you have to even do anything. How many of you out there listening right now have been doing great, and then all of a sudden someone walks in the room that and they're filled with anger or they're super, filled with bitterness, and you can feel it. You're like, whoa, what's wrong with you? What's going on with you today? And if you're just in the same vibration with them, meaning you're just in the same energy, you'll start to be like, I got to go in the other room. You stay here. I'm not being a part of this, because you can feel it. It's starting to change what your own levels of tension. That is what I'm talking about. That's being a read. When you stop and you don't take offense at what they're feeling, or you don't take offense at the person honking, you realize that you're closed. Your response to that experience is what closed you. Your IGS, your internal guidance system, always responds to what you're thinking. And in you learning to stop and pivot, what happens is there's an expansion, and you don't carry it forward, and it doesn't stay with you either. You literally don't feel that way anymore. You let it go. It leaves, it erases. And so one of the big things that I'm looking to do, and I want your help, is I want there to be 100 million reads in the world, 100 million people that are able to shift in such a way that they actually make a conscious difference in the world. There's this really great book. His name's David Hawkins, and he has a book called Power versus Force. And in Power versus Force, he has a consciousness chart that they've discovered. And so let's say there's 100 going, it goes from 0 to 1,000, and there's a level of 100, and anything below 100, and I may not have this perfect, by the way, but maybe a little off in my numbering, but what under 100 is things like sorrow, depression, bitterness, anger, rage, and these emotions that are hopelessness, and there's all these emotions that are under there. And this is the consciousness of people, different people throughout the world, and where they're at, what level they're at, disappointment, right? Violence. And then as you go up the scale and move towards 1,000, you have transcendence, and you have grace, and you have love, and you have all these various things all the way up to 1,000. Now, according to this level, Jesus Christ was at approximately 900 to 1,000. And so were Muhammad and Buddha and various wisdom teachers that were out there. Gandhi was at like 8. Martin Luther King was at like 650. And I'm just throwing out names. I should have printed it out for you guys, but you can look at it yourself. You can go and you can look up Chart of Consciousness, David Hawkins, right now on Google if you want, and you'll see it there. Now, the interesting thing about this is on the other side of the chart, for each person, they're offsetting another group of people, or positive or negatively. Meaning, for instance, Jesus, let's say, in him being alive on the planet with the consciousness that he had, he was holding up people that were not in that level of consciousness. He was holding up like 2 million people with that level of consciousness. And it goes all the way down to where like Martin Luther King would be holding up 600,000 people. Just giving you an example, not being exact here. Look it up for yourself. Was upholding that level of people. So if we move forward and we take these things on and we learn how to be a read, and the big waves and chaos stops with you, and then more and more, that's a consciousness raising inside of yourself. It's a deep level of taking responsibility for what you're bringing into the world. And knowing how to do it is fun. It's fun. Sick and tired of us having to work hard. I don't mind hard work as long as it's fun. Contribution that matters is fun. It feels good. It's what people are missing who are not able to get back on their blueprint because of fear. It's the central yearning thing that we have as humans, is to contribute, to help others, to be of value. It's fun. Us getting out of the messes we put ourselves in is going to feel good, people. Because as you contribute, you're going to know that you matter, and you are going to be mattering. You're going to see the fruit of your labor. There's nothing more powerful or beautiful than getting all used up in a way that's bringing joy and love, that's bringing people having what they need by bringing your gifts and being appreciated. That is what we're here to do. And all these distractions, right, that we have around us, it's pulling us off of that blueprint. That is the pressure that I'm talking about that polishes your diamond. So I'm going to start talking in this show over the next several episodes, breaking this down and supporting you and being able to become that reed, polish your darn diamond, have fun with your soul family, and make a difference in the world all at the same time. Because you're worth it and you matter, you're significant and you belong here. All right, that number again, if you'd like to call in with any comments, is 844-390-8255. That number again, if you'd like to call in, is 844-390-8255. The reason why I called this episode Falling Awake is because actually came from a really good friend of mine. His name's Dave, and he has a program that he calls Falling Awake. And I fell in love with it years ago. And it's the first time I've ever really used it for anything, is because it does feel like we're falling on the planet today, falling apart. We are falling away from our values. We're falling away from our republic and our democracy. We're falling away from our freedoms. We're falling away from being able to speak up for ourselves. We're falling away from everything. And what we want to do now is fall awake. Fall into a state of being awake, being aware of what we're doing, being aware of what's true for us, being aware of being able to listen to another person's opinion and not have it be anything than their opinion. You're awake enough to realize that just because someone feels some way, you don't have to be afraid of them. Falling awake back into who we are. And I'm super excited to be able to share these lovely little nuggets and moments with you. One of the things that I'm going to say is that you can bring anything you want to this show. It doesn't matter how politically charged it is. I am not here to push any particular political stand of mine that I have on anything. This is a safe place where you're able to actually discuss what you're upset about, or what's concerning to you, or what's a fear. Bring your fear, because what I would love to do is be able to have an open dialogue that brings you back to why does it matter to you, and how would you like it to be instead? One of the things that's happening is we're putting way too much attention on what we don't want and very little attention on what we do want. So even in something as sticky as abortion, pro-life, and pro-choice, it may sound in the conversations that people are having that they're talking about what they want. They want the right to have an abortion. They want the baby to have rights to be able to be born. But they're not really talking about what they want. They're restating an issue. There's a lot of regurgitation happening right now. And what it's going to take to solve these challenges that we're in, that's tearing us apart and being used, in my opinion, to not look at the real political issues we need to, but stir up our emotional experience inside of us using fear, and the fear of losing freedoms or the fear of losing life. It stops us from actually talking about what we want. There's lots of powerful conversations that need to be had coming from, well, I would really like for the baby to have a right to live, the baby to have the capacity to thrive once it's past a certain age, or be seen as a life form, or any of those things. There's people out there that are really, they're more, have a lot that they want to express about how they would like it to go, but it's more detailed. Or I would like to be able to have the freedom to be able to not bear a child if it's not something that I feel that I'm capable of or can do. And then somebody could come in with, well, I would like to see that people who are supported. One of the great arguments that I have heard, which I thought was well done, was, okay, well, we care so much about performing abortion and having the capacity for people to be able to receive them and financially support it and all of that. But then as soon as the baby's born, We don't care about that baby anymore. I was like, yeah, they're not getting adequate food. They're not getting adequate education. The moms aren't being supported in the way they need to. The dads can't participate, depending on what state you are and what the legality is. There's a lot of things here that we're not actually talking about. And inside each and every one of you is a very powerful capacity for you to bring wonderful solutions and ideas of how you want it to be, from an opening, from a place of, what about this? What about that? Not as a tearing down the argument, but as a, could this work? Could that work? We have to make sure that this is included. What about this kind of particular situation? How do we feel about life? Where does it start? A parent can't spank its child, but this whole situation going on with the yes or no for life or no life, where does that lie into how the child's treated after? So the conversation here that I'd love for you to participate in this week, as we're wrapping up the show for yourself, is in the things that this is the how-to I was talking about, in the things that you are fired up about, how do you want it to be instead? And don't just go to, I want these people to go away. Don't go to the knee-jerk thing. Really think about, how do I want it to be instead? And what would make it better than that? What would make it better than that? And keep asking what would make it better than that until you get into your miracle thinking. And I want you to notice how it feels in your body when you go from being fired up on an issue to contributing your unique significance to ideas of how it could be instead. Dream. How do I want it to be? What would be better than that? And notice how it feels with your internal guidance system, moving from the shutdown to the expansion, from the closing to the opening. You guys are incredible. I want to let you know that I'm going to be here every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. The topic will be the same as this conversation. We're just going to take it more into the how-tos of getting to this place where you are able to be a read, where you're able to shift things in your body. I'm super happy to have you and excited to hear from you. If you have any questions or anything, feedback you'd like to give, please send it to support@smartsoul.com. If you'd like to know more about your internal guidance system, you can find Zen Crier to Brooke on YouTube. And you're also able to go to mymindspark.com, MYMINDSPARK, mymindspark.com. And there is a free tutorial on how to feel your internal guidance system and feel your first openings and closings so that you can get back on your blueprint in your life and contribute what you're here to contribute to make the world an extraordinary place. I'm going to be signing off now. And once again, support@smartsoul.com. This is the What Now What radio program with Zen Crier to Brooke, and I will see you next week.